Alright guys, today I want to talk a bit about the original sniper battleship. Before Slava, before anything else, Yamato was the pick for long-range gun accuracy. This ship, of course, has the special feature of being able to overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, so that's why we get two full pens and an overpen on a Thunderer that's angled away from us, since he only has 32 millimeters of armor. You're going to see me use that a lot. Honestly, that strength of the Yamato is really important for getting damage with it. Since the vertical dispersion is really bad on this ship, you're actually better off shooting angled targets some of the time, especially at long range, compared to shooting at broadside targets, because you'll often just miss high and low. Which can get pretty frustrating. So you'll see me shoot at angled Thunders, Conquerors, Republics, those kind of ships where Borgones, where I know I'll just overmatch his armor. It just doesn't matter what angle he's at. You'll see me shoot that a lot at longer ranges because it just guarantees me damage and guarantees that I'm gonna do some damage to those ships. Especially Conqueror and Thunder hate it when they see a Yamato. They obviously can deal a ton of damage back to you by HE, but I'm trying to stay at the back and, whittle this Thunderer down a little bit before I start to push in. At longer ranges, they have a tougher time hitting you because, well, you can do this. You can be moving forward and backwards at different speeds. You can turn in, turn out, all that good stuff. Of course, when they do go broadside, they do get punished most of the time. I'm not saying that happens every time, but you can hit people pretty hard at almost any range. These guns are really good. Of course, it has the weaknesses that the Shikishima has as well, in that the hull is one of the worst tier 10 hulls in the game. You have a very high citadel. It's angled in such a way that when you're at a 30-degree angle to an enemy ship, they can still easily citadel you through the front little cheek area. The upper belt is 32 millimeters, so when you're facing another Yamato or just any high explosive spam, they can full pen you through the side or overmatch you through the side. There's a lot kind of negative. This ship also has really bad AA. Shikishima has one of the best AA platforms of all the battleships, where Yamato has really bad AA. The ship's also slow. It doesn't go 30 knots. The hull is not good, but these guns are pretty amazing. Here you're gonna see them be a little bit faster than they should be. There's a bug currently in the game. Wargaming switched around the expert marksman turret rotations, so the buff that the little guns should have is actually on the big guns now, and vice versa. So the big gun buff is on the little guns. So it should be that the big guns get a smaller buff from expert marksman, but currently they get the big buff that the small turrets get. So, or the small guns get. So these turrets won't be this fast for you, most likely, unless you play it like today or in the next little bit, because I'm sure they're gonna patch this out. But I will say it's pretty nice to have faster turrets. That'd be a welcome buff for this ship. Honestly, it would be pretty nice to have. But even if it isn't, you're generally shooting at ships on one side of your ship, so it's not a huge deal. So here on this enemy Yamato, I'm going to show you kind of where I want to aim for citadels on him. It is just about at his front turret is where I want to hit, and right kind of at the waterline. So those two shells that hit, I thought should have been citadels because they're pretty much exactly where his citadel is. Somehow they overpenned, but yeah, it's not consistent because it's a battleship, but that's kind of where you want to aim, is right in that cheek area. He's reversing now, so I'm going to aim just slightly farther back, and, well, as you can see, you deal pretty solid damage when you do get citadels and full pens. So it is a big weakness of the Yamato, and that's why I'm turning in. So Yamato's strongest against another Yamato when it's completely bow in, because you're showing the least amount of flat citadel forward that you can possibly show. You can still get citadeled and clapped through your bow, even when you're straight bow on, but it's a little harder to do than that. Where that is pretty easy to just simply aim at his cheek and kill him pretty easily, honestly. So that's the main weakness of this ship, I would say, especially at close range. Longer ranges, it's harder to hit that point, but at closer ranges, it's definitely doable. So here we're pushing a flank. Honestly, this is kind of a weird game. Yamato generally wants to be in the middle of the map and getting, shots on anybody, really, who's pushing or, the key ship. Since you have the ability to deal damage at almost any angle, you should use that to your advantage. So whatever the key ship that needs to die on the enemy team is, you want to be shooting that. So that's where I like to be in the middle of the map, but sometimes if you spawn on the edge, you do have to push the flank because your team needs a good flank. Otherwise, the game's not gonna work out too well. On that Minotaur there, I don't know how I only overpenned him. That ship seems to be only made of citadels, so there's definitely times where you just get unlucky in battleships, and that's just how it goes. But as far as Yamato's concerned, it's a really good battleship still. I wouldn't say it needs massive buffs, just because 32mm overmatch kind of carries it through a lot of games. But if I could change anything about the ship, it'd probably be the vertical dispersion. I would probably tighten that up a little bit, since vertical dispersion is by far the most frustrating dispersion to deal with. I would probably tighten that up. Here you can see I'm trying to angle to these bombs. His drop pattern is very vertical, so if we can stay horizontal to his bombs, we can mitigate the damage, as you can see. He does light a fire, but I'm going to repair that since there's not really any fire HE spammers near me. You can damage con one fire if you know that you're not going to be spammed with HE for a little bit. So that's kind of nice to, mitigate a bit more damage that way. You can't always do that, obviously, but sometimes it is the right thing to do. It's not just a set rule, of course, that, you never damage con one fire. But yeah, midway bombers, those can easily do 20k damage in a couple fires, but I've found that if you angle properly to them, where they're coming in at you from the side, at least the dive bombers, you can mitigate a lot of their damage. The problem with that is you need to be able to angle to the side to them without giving broadside to the entire enemy team. And that's kind of the problem with CVs, is they force you to not push in if you want to stay safe from them. If you want to mitigate CV damage, you can't be close to the enemy team because, well, if you try and mitigate the CV damage by turning broadside to the whole enemy team, you're just going to die. So that's something that I kind of am trying to do, is not push in too hard in CV games so that I can mitigate a lot of the CV damage. With torpedoes as well, if you want to dodge them, you have to turn. And being able to turn and angle and all that good stuff when you're close to the enemy team is just not possible. So that's kind of why I'm trying to stay farther back. The other thing is I'm just tired of being, that first guy in that loses all his health and dies right away. I kind of want to be alive in the end game scenarios to try and help my team win. So now we kind of have to stop pushing because a Summers is coming out. We have to be aware of that. His torps are already on the Conqueror, so we can't really be pushing here. And as you can see, the Hindenburg's shooting me, the range mod Minotaur is shooting me, and there's the torps right there. So what I'm thinking this guy's doing is I think this guy is going to the 10 line. And the reason for that is they have 2 caps, and our entire team is pushing, well, most of our team is pushing now out of C. So he wants to get broadside torps on us. So he knows we need to push to B if we want to hope to win this game. So I think he's coming around onto our flank. So what I'm thinking then is I need to angle to that. So either I angle bow into him, which would put me in a horrible position because I would then be stuck fighting a Summers for the rest of the game that I can never spot, and he just torps me. Or I can do a turnout now, because the CV's forcing me to turn anyway, and I know his torps are on cooldown for at least a little bit. Summers does have a fast reload, so I'm expecting the torps to come like 20 seconds from now, but I should be able to get this turn through without much trouble from those torps. As you can see, long range over islands, Yamato's pretty solid at dealing with cruisers. The only thing is that would be better is really a Montana. Montana is, I would say, more accurate just due to volume of shells going in on cruisers over islands. And that's kind of why we use it for COTS a lot of the time. As you can see, torps pop up, but we're angled to them, so they were never going to really deal that much damage. Only if we stayed kind of going in that straight line would I have taken a ton of damage from those torps. But as you can see, it's a really close game so far. We really need to deal with these cruisers and Bs so that our destroyers can kind of get in there. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on that instead of dealing with the Minotaur or something else. Unfortunately, the islands are kind of blocking me a little bit. That's the other nice thing about Montana. It has like really slow shells that can get over things a little easier. We still Citadel him, which is pretty nice, and potentially our CV can finish him. Not quite. But he's low enough that I think our DDs can start to get into B. I didn't really do much from then on, honestly. I just kind of sailed back into C, and then everything kind of died. So good job to my team. I actually had a pretty solid team this game. And yeah, this last shot, well, it's always nice to deal a ton of damage to a carrier. That doesn't always happen. So this ship is really good at long range and medium range. It suffers at close range due to its hull, but its guns are still really ridiculously strong at close range. You just need to know how to angle. And that's sorry. And that's kind of the main thing, is if you angle this ship at close range, it actually becomes a really good close range ship. But you just have to stay more angled than other battleships. And that's the kind of the key at close range. But this was more of a long range game, kind of showing you how generally I'm going to play this ship. Pretty solid damage, nearly 3k base. It's a good ship, and in fact, we almost hit 4 million potential damage that game, so it is a tanky ship despite its hull. It can tank a lot of damage. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a good day.